This is a build that I played during the Badger Private League. This is Badger Gaming put on a private league called Cops and Robbers. It had a small theme to it. The Cops could only play some of the Ascendancies or some of the base classes. The Robbers could only play the different base classes. So I had to play either a Marauder, a Duelist, or a Witch, or a Scion. So we chose to play a Witch. We wanted to play some kind of BV character, but I didn't want to play a Chieftain because I wanted to try something different. I knew that I wanted to play Witch. I knew that I wanted to play BV, so I kind of did a throwback to an Elementalist to see whether this class actually has text on it. So we tried it. Most of the gear here that we have in the private league is SSF. We traded for an Intuitive Leap, and we traded for a Opalescent Oil in order to get our Anoint down here. But everything else is just stuff that we found along the way and things that we made happen. So I'm going to walk you through it. I enjoyed the character, loved it. We ended up getting to level 97, blasting heists and carrying people by doing repositories and tunnels to get people leveled up and get them experience. I have 3 POVs I want to show you. One is this current character configured for clearing, so you get a feel for what that DPS looks like. The other is what the character looks like configured for single target, which is basically just dropping the gloves, but I'll show you anyways. And the third is kind of an exploration of what this character could look like in Softcore Trade League if you wanted to keep it on the tanky end, which really is what this character is trying to do, but also like kind of min-max the gear and have a bit more DPS in some of your slots here. I think the first thing we should talk about here is our Ascendancy choice. When I was leveling this character, I didn't have a strong feeling about going like for one of these 4 paths or the other 4 path first, but I opted into getting Masterminded Discord because I wanted to get more stuff reserved on my mana as soon as possible. So we have a little bit of extra AoE, a little bit of extra damage. You can toggle this in the configuration tab where Pendulum of Destruction is here. But the most important thing here is damage penetrates while affected by Herald of Ash. So while we have Herald of Ash, which we always do, we have 25% damage penetration, which is sweet. It's a lot of penetration. On top of that, we have increased effect of Herald buffs on us, and then reduced mana reservation of Herald skills. The Herald of Ash gives us more spell fire damage, and then Fizzgin is extra fire, so both of those are scaled whenever we see the words increased effect of Herald buffs. And then Herald of Purity is more physical damage, which applies not only to spells and attacks, but also to secondary corpse explosions. So all those explosions that we're popping off with when we have our Accidental Touch, they deal more damage as well. We have reduced mana reservation here. Yep, we talked about it. Really, if you're playing an Elementalist without taking the Elementor node, without taking all the Golem nodes, I feel like we're probably doing something wrong. We're either doing something for just the value or the novelty of being an Elementalist, or maybe we should be a different Ascendancy, or maybe we should just have these nodes. Being an Elementalist without having these nodes is just a little bit weak, a little bit too weak even for my choice. We're gaining from the Golem Ascendancies here. From Leech Primordial, we have damage per summon Golem. Remember, we have 4 of them, so this is about 80% increased damage. We also have increased effect of buffs granted by our Golems. Remember, we have damage, attack speed, cast speed, life regeneration, and physical damage mitigation. Those are all the buffs that we're getting from our Golems. And on top of that, we have increased Golem damage, which does nothing, so we're not going to scale that at all, because we're trying to play our own self-cast build. We're not worrying about the Golem damage themselves, but they give us elemental immunity, so we don't need to worry about having a Heat Flask or a Dowsing Flask, and we don't need to worry about those alternate ailments that come up in Delirium content. So like Brittle, Sap, those things, those don't matter to us at all, as long as we have at least 3 of our 4 Golems summoned. So this is a level 97 character that's been configured for clearing in the Softcore Private League. I'm going to walk you through why the configuration matters, and then why I even think that this character is kind of good. We're going to talk about tree, skill, items, configurations in that order. So the tree first, we're life, we're LE overload, we have our fire damage here, our conversions taken care of, our conversions taken care of down here as well. So we have 50% converted, another 40% converted, and then once we get to the items, I'll talk about Chernobog's Pillar being another source of conversion to fire, so that we're not losing out on any of our damage. Once we found a Thread of Hope, we have our nodes up here. Before you find a Thread of Hope, you're just going to do something like this to get your damage penetration, and your damage gain is extra fire, right? Control Z, you're my best friend. Other than that, we're just a bunch of life nodes. We don't really need any more damage than we already have. For the skills themselves, we're using Val Blade Vortex, Unleash, and Intensify. I think every self-respecting Val Blade Vortex build that is trying to have some amount of quality of life to it should have these 3 links. Yes, you can go without Unleash. Yes, you can go without Intensify, but really, these things add a tremendous amount of quality of life, and I wouldn't play a Val Blade Vortex character without those 3. On top of that, we're using Inspiration. Remember, anytime that you have Inspiration, make sure you check Inspiration charges in your Configuration tab in POV. We also have Controlled Destruction and Elemental Focus. Our movement is Flame Dash along with Shield Charge. We can use both of them. We have 4 Golems in the build. We have one golem base. We have a second golem, a third golem, and then a fourth golem from up here, along with increased effect of all of our golems that we have. So our 4 golems are all going to be in our helmet. They're socketed in a helmet that has +2 to level of socketed gems. It has dexterity, which I need for the build. It has chaos res, which I need for the build, and I was pretty happy with it. I ended up finding a helmet SSF that has the increased effective buff granted by your stone golems, which gives you regen. I'm going to talk about why that's sweet, but not yet. So in our helmet, we have lightning golem for speed, chaos golem, which gives physical damage reduction. Our flame golem gives us % increased damage, and then stone golem gives us a bunch of regen. On top of that, we have 4 things reserving our mana. We have 2 heralds, which synergize with our ascendancy, not only because one of them gives us damage penetration, but they have reduced mana reservation, which means that we can fit in a lot of stuff on our mana. So we have Herald of Purity, which has more physical damage, and we have Herald of Ash, which is Fizz gain is extra fire, and then more spell fire damage, both of which we use in this build because we're a full fire conversion blade vortex. Next, we have Flesh and Stone, which I always keep in sand stance because it blinds nearby enemies and gives me an extra little source of damage avoidance and then damage mitigation from enemies that are far away. And then last but not least, we're using Skitterbots. Skitterbots we're using only for the shock. We're not using hypothermia. You could if you wanted to. You could use Profane Proxy or something like that. We'll talk about it later. But I'm using Skitterbots because it has a shocks nearby enemies, which applies a 18% increased damage taken modifier to the enemies, scaling my damage. You could use something like Aspect Spider if you were in a trade league, but Skitterbots I think is pretty good and it makes my mana just fine. For my weapon, I have Trigger Socketed Spell when you use a skill. I have Steel Skin, Wave of Conviction, Combustion. If you wanted more consistent defenses, you could try to change around the skill gems in order to have cast when damage taken Steel Skin, or even cast when damage taken Immortal Call, because we are generating endurance charges on kill. For the last couple pieces of our skill gems in PoB, we have 3 things, and we'll talk about this, especially when it comes to clearing versus having single target damage. So I have 3 curses in the build, kind of by accident. So I have Enfeeble, which comes from my shield. I'm using Chernobog's Pillar. This has a 25% chance to curse non-cursed enemies with Enfeeble on hit. That non-cursed enemies line of text is important. We'll talk about that too. On top of that, for my gloves, Asenath's Gentle Touch, this has cursed enemies with temporal chains on hit with 40% increased effect. And we also have a Flammability Ring. And the Flammability Ring is a Delve Ring that happens to have cursed enemies with Flammability on hit with 20% increased effect. So if I want to curse things with Flammability, I need to make sure that I don't have the Asenath's Gentle Touch. The Chernobogs, I can overwrite very easily with a curse enemies with Flammability on hit because of the line of text non-cursed enemies. But if I want to make sure that I'm doing as much damage as possible, I need to not have these gloves on and use something else instead. So for the gear itself, let's swap back here, go like this. For our helmet, I already showed you this. This is +2 level of socketed gems. Our weapon is Trigger. Our rings both have +1 minimum frenzy charge. I don't have any sorts of frenzy charge generation, but like you can see on the top of the screen, we always have 2 frenzy charges. Our amulet is kind of a tanky option. It's really nice when you have a bit of life regeneration to scale that life regeneration with increased life recovery rate. Oftentimes you only see this on like an RF character who has a bunch of flat life regen, maybe from vitality, maybe a bunch of % life regen from the tree and endurance charges, and then maybe they'll have an elder belt on top of that that says increased life recovery rate. We can get this on a replica at Series Foible, which is actually, it's super, super good. Not only does this thing give us 100 life, it's 2% life regen, it also has life recovery, it also has like reduced attribute requirements, which kind of helps me with my dexterity, because I don't really have much dexterity on my tree. So it helps to cover that, so I can even use my Val Blade Vortex. Other stuff we have here, gloves. I have a glove swap that I'll show you later. The belt is just life chaos res with some crafted resistance on it, and the boots are as much movement speed as I can get, so 30, as much life as possible, 85, and then a bit of resistance as well. For our flasks, we have Dousing, a Wise Oak, Adrenaline, Warding, and Iron Skin. We don't need to worry about having a heat flask or having cannot be frozen in our boots. We don't need to worry about Dousing or Brittle or Sap or any of those things because we have 35% chance to avoid elemental ailments per summoned golem. We're using 4 golems, but we only need 3 total at any given point in time to avoid all ailments. This includes things like Sap, Brittle, and those alternate ailments. We have Stone Golem, Chaos Golem. Those are both like physical mitigation and life regen. Then we have Fire Golem for, I guess, Flame Golem for damage. And then the last Golem, I think, is the kind of the flexible slot if you really wanted to get rid of it or have an extra gem link somewhere. But our last Golem is Lightning Golem, which makes our shield charge nice and fast because it gives us lots of attack speed, and then gives us cast speed just to make sure that the other things we're doing, like maybe casting our Unleashed BV, goes nice and fast, so we never have any downtime. This is our level 97 clearing DPS. I'm going to leave it selected on Cyrus. If you really want to, you could have a white map with no mods on it. We could have like a standard boss, which would be maybe there's like elemental resistances on the monsters, but I'm going to leave it turned on to Cyrus right here. For the realistic uptime of our flasks, we have a lot of defensive flasks, a granite and a basalt, with some movement speed, and then a wise oak. Wise oak represents just about 10% increased damage, or sorry, 10% of our... For our flask here, we have a couple of tanky flasks, granite, basalt, and quicksilver. We have one DPS flask here, just with wise oak, because we're not crit, and we don't want to worry about having something like a bottled faith. For our configuration, we have endurance charges all the time. The endurance charges come from our anoint. This is a chance to gain endurance charge on kill, and +1 minimum endurance charge. We have inspiration charges all the time. We have fortify because we're shield charging around. We have crit recently, and I'm going to leave this ticked onto area of effect. For our intensity, if we're running around the map clearing things, we have 0 stacks of intensity. We have conviction is triggered from our weapon, so we have fire exposure here, which is also from a combustion. We have chill, which represents nothing. We have shock, which is already calculated. In fact, if I type in the number 17 here, you'll see that the damage doesn't go up at all because POB already knows exactly how much shock DPS we have from our skitterbots, which we have reserved on our mana. Nothing else here. Cyrus, no unnerved. I don't have that in the build. Covered in ash. I'm using no war cries in the build. You could use something like Infernal Cry if you really wanted to up your DPS, but we'll get there later. So just about clearing DPS is around 790 DPS here. If you want an idea of how much damage we deal on a tanky map, we can set it to standard boss. Maybe the enemies have some kind of elemental resistance, and it's about 850k DPS while we're clearing. One specific thing that I want to point out is that our build has no leech in it whatsoever. You could try to get a delve ring that has fire damage leeches life. You could try to get a incursion amulet that has fire damage leeches life. We're not really scaling our energy shield at all, so having this fire damage leech DS, this is not really something that matters to us. But from this, we have increased effective buffs granted by your golems per summon golem, and we have 4. So we have 100% increased effective of golem buffs, and then also the same line of text, 100% increased effect of golem buffs. And then we also have on our helmet 100% increased effect of the buff granted by your stone golems. So we have 300% increased effect of the buff, which is about 500 life regen total. And then on top of that, for our amulet, we have some life regen. Yeah, some life, sure. And then also 24% increased life recovery rate. Remember, life recovery rate is kind of like a more multiplier to all of your other life regen sources. So just the stone golem itself, having the Elementalist Ascendancy with the golems, having the +2 socketed minion gems helmet, having +1 fizz gems on our wand, which applies to our stone golem because it has the fizz tag, having the helm enchant of increased effect of the buffs granted by your stone golems, along with the 24% increased life recovery rate, gives us a huge amount of life regen for no reason, which is awesome. So we don't have any spell leech at all. We don't have any fire damage leeches life. With our skill tree having a couple sources of life regen, we have 1% life regen here, 0.8% life regen here, and then 1 little percent life regen here as well. We're regenerating about 1,000 life per second, which, with how tanky we are otherwise from all of our defensive nodes, feels really good. I never felt at any point during this character that I needed more life leech than I already had. I can't use it at series, obviously, because I'm Avatar of Fire, so I can't get like chaos damage leeches life as a spellcaster, but I never felt like I needed it, so I was really happy with how this worked out. Can we talk about defenses? Let's talk about defenses. We have Fortify, turn it off. Endurance charges, turn it off. A couple other things selected here, that's fine. And this is our 97 clearing character, okay? This is still gear that we're using in a softcore private league. I'm going to turn all of our flasks off and then go to the calculations tab and look at the very bottom. With nothing up, with no endurance charges, no clearing, we haven't shield charged recently, we have no fortify. We have about a hit pool against physical damage of 20k. For your average spellcaster, especially someone who's on the top side of the tree, or who's not specifically going out of the way to be tanky, you're going to see that an effective hit pool with everything up will be about 20k. On average, all the POBs that I look at do not have enough physical mitigation. They don't have physical damage reduction. They don't have endurance charges. They don't have fortify. They don't have things that help prevent physical damage from killing them. And it makes characters feel just a tiny bit squishy. So I'm going to add in a couple things at a time, and we'll see what these things look like. Let's say that we shield charge. We gain endurance charges on kill. And we also have fortify. So let's turn both these on. We have 1 minimum endurance charge. So we're going to gain 2 more by clicking on this. And then let's go fortify. So we shield charge into a pack, and we popped off a bunch of explosions with our blade vortex. We now have about 30k. I think 30k is a good minimum threshold for where your physical damage reduction should be. If you're less than this, go get more. Go get endurance charges. Go get fortify. Go get something else in your build. Maybe change out an offensive flask or a defensive flask. But we're 30k. Nice. Let's click on some flasks. We have a granite flask of warding and a assault flask of iron skin, which is going to scale up our armor from 2,000 up to about 11,000. So our calculation was about 30k effective hit pool. So once we turn on both these flasks, the basalt and the granite, we have an iron skin suffix, which we can kind of fit into our flasks because not only are we using not very many unique flasks, but also we already have ailment immunity from our ascendancy. Our physical damage mitigation is going to shoot up from about 30,000 to 159,000. We're significantly tankier now that we have all of our buffs up. We also have a maximum hit pool. So this is like the largest single hit that we can take, because you know that armor has like diminishing returns against like the increased size of hits. We can tank 1 single hit of 90,000 damage before we die. So it's pretty good. A lot of tankiness here. So I said I have 3 POBs for you, but I spent a lot of time on the first one. Let's go to the second one here. So the second POB that we're going to look at here, just real quick, this is 1197 character configured for single target. This is softcore, private league, basically SSF, except for the intuitive leap that I traded for. So the damage here, the only big difference here is that we swapped off of our gloves. I used a different pair of gloves instead that have physical damage converted to fire damage and a little bit of life, a little bit of cold res on them. And then we swapped off of our conversion nodes, and then I just grabbed some basic other nodes instead. So a little bit of fire damage, a little bit of life regen. Yeah, it's fine. Nothing else has changed here from the normal POB that I was using otherwise. In the configuration tab, we make sure that our intensify is turned up to rank 4. So we're standing still, we're moving very little, and we're just kind of like casting our Val Blade Vortex over and over and over. And then we have enfeebled disabled and flammability turned on. And remember, we don't have temp chains anymore to worry about because we're no longer using Athanath's Gentle Touch. So our single target damage was not much. It's only 1.3 mil, but it felt very good for me getting all the way up to level 97. I was carrying people doing I-83 heists. We were doing like repositories and tunnels, just trying to get people as much experience as possible with six-man parties. And this character felt great for that. Felt very good. Let's take a look at the BV Elementalist 97 configured for Trade League and see what kinds of things you could do instead if you wanted even more damage in this build, right? So you can see that I've taken off the conversion nodes altogether. The rest of the build is roughly the same. I didn't want to make too many changes to the build because really, if you want to min-max something just to deal as much damage as possible, there's a lot of good ways to scale that damage right now. But I think the core identity of this character is we're an Elementalist. We have buff effect from our Golems. We have a lot of tankiness coming in from things like Chaos Golem. You could even use one of the alt quality Chaos Golems that gives you even more physical damage mitigation. That'd be cool. But we're a tanky spellcaster, right? So preserving the identity of this being a tanky spellcaster, let's see what we can do instead, just to kind of min-max it. First things first, on the Val Blade Vortex, we could have a level 21, 0 quality Val Blade Vortex. This would be a very easy thing for you to get. We could have like some level 21 gems for Unleash and Intensify, and maybe just like, let's say 520 for the rest of our gems here, and then we lose out on using Inspiration. So our mana cost is going to be a tiny bit higher. So that's definitely a consideration for this. For the rest of this, I don't think anything else would really change. Maybe you could toggle up your Hail of Ash or your Hail of Purity to go up a level, but I think for the most part, it's good to go. Again, I'm currently using Skitterbots for enemies take 17% increased damage from the shock effectiveness that's on the gem itself. You could drop Skitterbots and have, what's it called? Aspirated Spider instead. Aspirated Spider is enemies take 15% increased damage, and then you could apply shock in a different way, either with shock on focus, a ring craft that you can just like shock enemies whenever you click the focus button on your keyboard, or you could just leave it as Skitterbots here. So that's fine. Let's talk about gear and see what other kind of upgrades you can make if you're in a softcore trade league instead of being in a private league like me, which was basically SSF. In terms of conversion, we're still using Avatar Fire because we want to make use of Double Herald plus Flesh and Stone plus Skitterbots. We're not going to use Anger, so we can't use a Watcher's Eye for that. But we still have other options for converting damage. We have 25% conversion from our gloves here, which is very easy to make, and you can scale those up by just crafting this on any old pair of gloves that you can min-max for yourself. We don't need to use a unique shield. We don't need to use Chernobogs for converting damage. We could have like +1 fizz, 100 life, maybe recover life on block as well. And then for our weapon, we can use a Crusader weapon that has +1 fizz spell skill gems on it. Maybe as a scepter, maybe a wand, doesn't really matter. And then we'll also have physical damage converted to fire damage on that weapon. So with Avatar Fire, it's 50%, gloves are 25, weapons 25. We can convert 100% of our damage to fire damage. So we have +1 here, we have +1 here. On our chest piece, let's say that we want to use enemies you kill explode because it's great and I love it. But maybe one other DPS modifier, maybe we have like a Shaper Crusader chest piece with +1 to level of active skill gems. So this puts our Blade Vortex up to level 21 Blade Vortex +5. So it's a level 26 Blade Vortex here. For our boots, maybe some movement speed, maybe some cannot be frozen, which I guess we don't need because we already have this here. Let's see, what else can we do? For amulet, this is just a basic double +1. So +1 dexterity, +1 fizz. So it's a hunter, warlord, awaken orb those together. And this is the kind of the result to it. Maybe you get lucky, maybe you get some other lines of text on it, but I just put 55 life on it to kind of estimate how much life we can get on a character while we're min-maxing in a trade league environment. For our rings, we can still craft +1 minimum frenzy charge, maybe some life. This is a delve ring here. A delve ring would have fire damage, leeches life. This kind of makes up for the fact that we're no longer using a replica at series foible, so we no longer have like all of that extra life regen that we would otherwise have. For our second ring, we have curse enemies with flammability on hit, +1 frenzy charge. If you want to min-max this, if you want to make this into an opal ring, that's on you. But I think this is still a pretty good ring, so I'm just going to leave it there for the time being. For a belt, crafting a hunter belt like this is really not a big deal. You can get something like 99 life, get a bunch of resistances on it, and get an open prefix. And then you will slap your life mana modifier catalyst onto it, grab your hunter exalted orb, and slap it on. The fact that you use the catalyst before you use the hunter orb means that the hunter orb is much more likely to hit the life modifier. So you can just craft a ring, you can just craft a belt that looks like this. It kind of looks like a second chest piece with 112 life, % increased life, and it really helps to get a good chunk of life onto a build that's kind of lacking some otherwise. So if you only have 90 life on your belt, maybe we have 6.5k life, and maybe that's okay for you. But I wanted to estimate, all right, what's some good gear? What's some good stuff that we could do for the belt? So we go from 6.58 up to 6.9. So it's another like 400 life or so, just from having the 12% increased life here. So because we have our recover life on block shield, we can use a Remuse Concoction along with Lancing Blows. We have about 75% chance to block attack damage, and then 44% chance to block spell damage. You could work Tempest Shield into this build. You could get a shield that also has crafted chance to block spell damage on it, and you can get this up to 50 relatively easily doing those sorts of things. If you wanted to anoint something like Arcane Swiftness for better block chance, if you wanted to anoint something like Command of Steel for better block chance, I think that's fine as well, just to get like a little bit extra damage as well. And I think that is better damage overall, but because I wanted to preserve the identity of this build, I'm using my Anoint on my amulet still to grab Disciple of the Unyielding, because this is a way to generate endurance charges on kill. It's damage per endurance charge. We're still getting some kind of damage out of it. +1 minimum endurance charge, so when we're walking around the map before we've killed something, we're still a little bit tanky. A budget option for this that you see popping up in hardcore all the time is, without using an opalescent, you can still use this. So this is chance to gain endurance charge on kill while holding a shield. So any spellcaster could always anoint this if you only care about endurance charge generation and picking that up somewhere, right? What's next? Let's talk about the DPS here. We're at 1.4 mil. Everything's configured. We're not using Covered in Ash because we're not using a Infernal Cry. If you wanted to, I can toggle this on and off so you can see what the damage looks like. It's about 1.4 with it off, 1.65 with it on. But we have intensity here. We can go 1, 2, 3, 4 stacks. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 stacks of intensity, which puts us at about 2.39, about 2.4 million damage. If you want to use Covered in Ash on top of that, it goes up to 2.8. And then if you really want to min-max damage and you don't care about endurance charges, shame on you, you could grab something like this, which is the intensity node. The spells which gain intensity have +1 maximum intensity. If I were to anoint this instead, this node is a 13.6% DPS node. It makes your AoE a little bit smaller than you used to. It means that your DPS is more heavily gated on whether you can stand still or whether you're going to be moving around, those sorts of things. But all in all, if you only care about DPS, this would put you up to like maybe 3.4, 3.5 mil DPS. So all things considered, I think this character is really well-rounded. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm happy that I was able to carry people in a softcore trade environment up to like level 94, 95, 96. I got myself up to level 97 by chaining repositories and by chaining tunnels and ID3 maps over and over, doing heist content, because heist content is a little bit rippy, but it's insane. It's just so much experience, and I really enjoy doing it. Would I recommend this character to you? If you like tanky spellcasters, I might be the only person who likes tanky spellcasters, but really, I'm okay with this kind of DPS. If you like one-shotting stuff, if you like making YouTube one-shot montages, maybe this build is not for you. It's not really up your lane. But if you like staying alive, if you like leveling, if you like having a cozy experience while you're mapping around, especially with something like either an accidental touch to explode things or like an explodey chest piece that maybe you have left over from a different build, yeah, those things are all excellent, right? If you want to do delirious content, I don't think this build is good enough. If you're doing 20%, maybe 40%, maybe 60% delirious tier 16s, yeah, this build's gonna be just fine for it. Once you start doing tier 17, tier 18, tier 19, 100% delirious content, I don't think this build's where you want to be. I think you have better choices going for things like Assassin. I think you have better choices going for tankier Ascendancies, maybe not memeing around by being an Elementalist like me, but up until that point, and including tier 16s, and even 20% delirious tier 16s, which is content that I think is really fun, and I think it's like really relaxing as well, because I like watching the screen explosions. Yeah, I think this build is absolutely appropriate if you're just using like one delirious orb on a tier 16. Comparing this build to a Chieftain BV, I think Chieftain's going to have more damage. Honestly, I love the Chieftain Ascendancy. I love that it has no movement speed, no attack speed, no cast speed. It's just good beef. It's just like defense from Tassalio, Fizz taking his Ellie. It's endurance charge generation. It's like covered in ash, fire damage, leeches life. The Chieftain Ascendancy is great. There's nothing wrong with this at all. But I wanted to play a witch. That's why I made my option for it. And I think realistically, it's not just a question of like this one's better than that one's better than this one. They offer different things. The Elementalist is way faster because you get increased effect of the buffs granted by your golems from Golem Commander and the 2 nodes in your Ascendancy. And then you have a Lightning Golem, which means that you're super, super fast when you're shield charging around. You get tons of attack speed for free compared to none down here. You still get avoid elemental ailments, 100% chance from your Ascendancy by having your golems up. So one of the things that surprised me most is that it's not really a question of, is the Chieftain better? Are you just memeing by playing an Elementalist instead? And like, really, no. You get a lot of speed. You get a chance to avoid ailments up to 100% chance. You get like different things to do with your mana because you have double purity, plus skitterbots, plus flesh and stone. So a lot of defense from that. You get like damage penetration. You get a little damage penetration down here as well. It's just a different Ascendancy. And I really like how well this character turned out overall. If you like content like this, please let me know. Like, subscribe, come follow on Twitch as well. It's where I do the majority of my content. That's twitch.tv/PerryThePig. The POBs for all 3 characters here, with the 97 character configured for clearing, configured for single target, and then configured for what it might look like in a softcore trade league with a little bit more min-maxing going on. All those will be in the description. We'll see you next time.